What is up, MCU nerds? So, this is my preferred order to watch all of the MCU films and TV shows. I was inspired to make this because I just felt like the order I had been compiling for years now was not being presented in all the YouTube videos and online lists that I've read over the years. So, I'm going to separate my watch order into the different phases, starting with what I call Phase Zero. These are all of the pre MCU movies that have later been added to the MCU canon. I will keep these videos to minimal spoilers, but I will say that all of these movies here have characters that show up later on in the MCU, so that's what makes them canon. Technically, the first Marvel movie would be Howard the Duck, but for one, that's just not a great movie and not really worth watching, in my opinion. And two, that Howard doesn't show up in the MCU at all. The one that does is a completely different Howard the Duck. So, in my view, Blade is an excellent start to an MCU viewing order. In fact, the MCU may not exist if not for the success of Blade. Let's flash back a bit to the late 70s and 80s. The superhero genre was in a pretty good place with the releases of the early Superman and Batman movies, but by 1997, with the release of the embarrassingly bad Batman and Robin film, superhero movies were on the decline. Marvel also had just declared bankruptcy on December 27, 1996. Marvel had been licensing out their characters for quick cash in order to survive. Of these, Blade was the first film to be released in this way and became Marvel's first success at the box office. It was licensed out to New Line Cinema while Sony produced the Spider-Man movies. Then Fox Studios handled the X-Men, Daredevil, and Fantastic Four movies. These movies mostly all did pretty well at the box office, but Marvel just wasn't making much money off of them. But they realized these characters were now popular enough to produce these movies themselves and take out all the cut. So that was the start of the MCU. Without Blade's success, Marvel may have never taken a chance on the MCU. So we'll start the viewing order with watching Blade 1, Blade 2, and then Blade 3, or Blade Trinity. And from the Blade trilogy, we'll go mostly in release order but watch each series together instead of going in strict release order. This just makes more sense than going back and forth between the different series. And so the first film released after the first Blade was the original X-Men movie, but we're going to start with X-Men Origins Wolverine. It was released after the X-Men trilogy, but I still think it makes more sense to watch it before X-Men. Gives you a background on Wolverine that makes the X-Men movies more satisfying, especially X2 since the story there has a lot to do with what happened in Origins. Fair warning though, they changed out a lot of the characters that play certain important characters between the two movies, so in that way some people speculate they're not even in the same universe. But I think the story fits together well enough that you can include Oranges in this viewing order. Watching this way, you also get a little Ryan Reynolds Marvel arc between Blade 3 and Origins. He's in both movies, but plays different characters. Too bad Green Lantern is in DC, or else we could include that here as well. But after we get through the 5 X-Men movies, we get to Marvel's biggest movie at this point, in the original Spider-Man movie, and then made 2 sequels after that. I think this is the point where Marvel really realized how big they could get because these movies made them a ton of money. After Spider-Man, we get to the Ben Affleck Daredevil, and then Elektra, which is sort of a direct sequel. Then the 2005 Fantastic Four and its sequel. You can watch the 2015 Fantastic Four if you really want to, but it's non-canon at this point. Then we'll finish off Phase Zero with the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. After this, we'll move on to Phase One with Iron Man, but we'll go over that in a later video. Until then, do you agree with this order? Would you change anything? Did I miss any movies? Let me know in the comments.